a show that tackles the big issues affecting the BVI and the rest of the Caribbean. Searches for answers to today's big questions and gives viewers a unique perspective on developing stories. Follow the big story with me, Kathy Richards, only on JTV. This show is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Cyril B. Ramney Tertola Pier Park, NV Salon Spa Nail and Barbershop, the Wellness Center, Medical and Behavioral Health Clinics, Ticely Cross Deliciously Smooth Cider, HOV Medical and Digicel, simply more speed, reliability and entertainment. This is The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards. I want to thank you so much for joining us for this edition. Today we're going to be talking with a naturalist, we would want to call her. She says she Irie, and we're all natural. We are so happy to have in studio today with us Dr. Amber Wheatley Buckell. Got it! This has been in the making for quite a little while now that we were trying to have this conversation, and so I'm so happy we're finally making it.
Yes, I'm very glad to be invited.
Awesome. I remember when this conversation started after I was reminded of a post that your dad did talking about his daughter's awesome accomplishments, and I remember some years back when I think I had done an interview with you or something around you, and they talk about you aspiring to become the first mortician in the territory. Yes, I think the interview was with you. And then when I read that piece that your dad did, I'm like, no, she didn't do it.
But it's for a good reason.
So let's talk about it.
Right,
let's talk about it.
When I went into medical school, I went in wanting to do a pathology. So I really like forensic pathology, doing autopsies, getting involved with crime scene investigation, that sort of thing. Wasn't too keen on talking to people at the time. But as I went through medical school, I realized I actually really like talking to people, and living people are cool too. So I ended up going into family medicine rather than pathology.
And now you still have the territory surgeon for its own in this area.
I can't do it all.
I know.
I can just do the little bit that I can.
Yeah. But for the sake of those who do not know who Amber is, talk a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, where to begin? So I'm originally from Virgin Gorda. I'm, VI till I die, so I went away and studied, and then I came back specifically to train and work in Virgin Gorda. My interest is in rural and remote health, so communities that are far away from secondary care, your pre-hospital medicine, so people who get stuck at the bath, that sort of thing. That's my jazz. I trained in North Wales in the UK, was doing family medicine there with a bit of out-of-hours training, so emergency care, and I've now come back home, and I'm working at Iris O'Neill Clinic in Virgin Gorda.
How important is this for you?
It's extremely important. I mean, so between my returning home and starting to work at Iris O'Neill, I sort of ventured out a little bit and was doing yoga instruction. One of the things I realized is that being a doctor, being a healer in a general sense, it's who I am. It cannot be separated from my core values. Even with the way I teach yoga, I incorporate a lot of my knowledge with medicine into how I train people and how I show them how to get into the poses, and how I incorporate their mental and physical well-being into the classes. So being able to come home for one, being able to do something I really love doing, family medicine for the second thing, they're very important. Being part of my community, being able to give back to the community, and nurturing that next generation of healthcare professionals as well is really important.
Okay. You said earlier that, at first you thought you weren't a person who loved to talk. But you spoke to us a lot, because I think the entire territory became very conversational with you, while it's not orally, it was through your yoga.
Yes.
We were all there every time trying to do this that Amber is doing, and you kept that going for quite some time. Explain to some people what you do, because some persons still think that you're a contortionist.
So yes, sometimes yoga can look like contortion, but yoga is essentially 3 important aspects to it. One is your breathing, so being able to control the breathing. The other thing is the movement, so being able to do some of that contortion, but really the flow of movement, what we call vinyasa in yoga. And then the third thing is your mental well-being, your spirit, so to speak. So combining all of those 3 things so that you can do the impossible for some people. That's really what I try and teach people to do. The focus with my yoga classes is really on functionality, not so much how the poses look. So for example, some of my clients are working on their handstands. It's not something they would have thought they could get into before. But with the right entry, the right support, you can do anything in yoga, and some of them have gotten into their handstands no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
The field that you've decided to follow now and bringing it back home, this is one thing that we do not see happening very often, where young persons go overseas to study and return to give their services to the territory of which they belong. Why you thought it was so important to come back home? That call has always been on. Please come back home. Come back home to the general population of persons who go away to study.
I think actually it's more common than people think for people to come back home, because especially when I returned home, I bumped into quite a few of my high school classmates. So a lot of people have come back home. The problem that we have is we don't how can I say it? We don't let the community know as much. There's not that general involvement of the community, like, okay, this is how many people we've sent away, this is how many have come back. People don't really have solid numbers of what's happening. For me, it was important because this environment is what grew me. All the support that I have, I want to give to somebody else, in a way of giving back. That's why it was important for me to come home, on top of the fact that my husband and most of my family are here.
Okay. And you have been able, apart from what you do, you have been able to reclimatize in the sense that you fall in to see what's happening with the development of your country. How do you see things?
I'm going to try and encapsulate it as succinctly as I can. I feel that the BVI for the last decade or 2 has been in a constant state of change. But one of the reasons why we're perpetually in this state of change instead of actually growing in a certain direction is because as a general population, we're a bit indecisive. We want to pick the right path without actually committing to it. So we kind of edge a little bit towards one decision and then see how it's working out and then go a little bit further. But without that clear commitment, you don't have the investment to actually take you forward. So one of the things I found coming back home is that there's a lot of the ideas, there's a lot of the resources, but there isn't necessarily the infrastructure or support to bring people to whatever goal that they have. So for example, when I returned home, one of the biggest boundaries that I had is that I had no idea how to apply for a job as a doctor.
Oh, wow.
Because the website for the Health Service Authority, it doesn't list any job vacancies, it doesn't tell you who to contact, there's no number for you to figure out, okay, well, how do I do this? So I just sort of sent an email to however many people I thought might have known and waited for a response. But having that, oh, okay, you went away on a scholarship, this is who you need to call, this is the documents you need, all of that I sort of figured out along the way rather than having a very clear process of how to go about it. And you end up wasting a lot of time then trying to figure it out. So I think that the lack of commitment is leading to a lack of investment, leading to a lack of infrastructure, and so you end up in this kind of constant state of change, trying to find the direction. But I think a lot of the a lot of the interest and a lot of the personnel and resources is there, but it's not being utilized in a efficient way.
How in your young mind, how do you see us getting that fixed?
Make a commitment. I mean, one of the things that I've learned, especially teaching yoga, it's my first time being sort of an independent entrepreneur. Although I did have the support of my family behind me, you have to make a decision. What style of yoga are you going to do? How are you going to treat your clients? How are you going to run your business? You can't sort of make a decision and then see somebody else doing something different and then change it to match them and then change your price. People will, not...
You get confused
exactly.
and lost in your way.
And then your clients will pick up on that. Oh, well, last week you charged this and now you're charging this. What's happening? You basically just need to commit and you need to take responsibility for your consequences. You make a decision, it doesn't work out, fine. You own up to what happened, you reevaluate, you come back better. I think that's just what we need to do from a governmental level to a personal level. You just need to commit to what you're doing and then everything else will come along.
And do you think a lot of the young people in the territory, those who might have gone away and those who are here, are having that a bit of problem too, being confused as to where to turn to and how to do what?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, well, according to my parents, I'm quite unique in the fact that I knew what I wanted to do from day one and everything was aligned with that. I wasn't very easily deterred by what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to study medicine, I knew I wanted to go away to do it, and I knew I wanted to come back. Mm-hmm. They spent 13 years telling me don't come back, but I came back anyway. They wanted me to see the world, and I was like, I've seen enough.
Okay, you want to be home.
But it's that sort of, okay, everybody wants you to go to college, so you go to college. You're not sure what you want to study, so you pick something, you're not sure that you like it. You finish college, you don't really know what you want to do with it. You find a job, it's kind of doing what you need it to do, but you don't know what the long game is. Mm-hmm. You don't have an end goal in sight. So I think having that idea of what you want to commit to, where do you want your life to take you, I feel a lot of young people aren't really used to thinking about that. And so they result in this meandering journey through life rather than a commitment with a goal in mind.
Okay, and comment, and you realize I'm jumping to different little things because I want to get as much as I can possibly out of you, much to the benefit of those who can benefit from your little knowledge that you have. But very often that we see when we try to be of some influence in the lives of younger people, the younger generation. They say, oh, you don't live your life, you don't old, you don't did that and you did that. This is a new era. How can you be that beacon for that age group that says that, those were back in the time stuff that, the older generation is trying to tell us about.
Yeah.
How do you help guide their path? What can you, as Dr. Amber Wheatley Buckell, guide?
I think the best way to guide someone who has that mindset is to live by example. People, they take advice from those who live the lifestyle they want to live. In some sense, they're right to say that, oh, well, you've lived your life, that was from the past. The advice that the generation currently and previously give us now is based on their experience. Things have changed, especially post-COVID. A lot of what they think is useful is no longer useful. I mean, a good example of that is the way that we treat corporate jobs. A lot of people, they will get a good job with benefits, stay there for as long as possible, the rest of your life ideally, and then retire at 65 and then you can buy your dream home and live the rest of your life. That doesn't work now. A lot of people are living longer, so the retirement age is being pushed up later. I anticipate probably by the time I'm ready to retire, the retirement age might be closer to 75 than 65. A lot of that advice doesn't really work, especially with changing industries. The tourism industry is seasonal. You can't have someone working in a seasonal industry for the rest of their life. They have to have something else to go with it. So we're seeing more young people going into entrepreneurship or having a main job with benefits and then a side job that's more of their passion project. That is more of the way that we're seeing young people work, and we do have to cater to the new changing environment. Advice is just there as a guide, right? As a rough idea of the direction you want to go into. It's not controlling, it's not a set path, it's not telling people what to do. And I think a lot of young people, especially in the BVI, are not used to being engaged in that way where you say, okay, well, this is what helped me at the time. You might want to look into doing something similar. It might not work for you, but you have to use your own discernment.
Modernize it.
Exactly.
Make it modern.
Exactly, and adapt it to what will work for you.
Awesome. But one of while you say a lot of young people are going into entrepreneurship, we see them going with, yes, what's happening in the now, but there is a critical area that we're not seeing quite enough young people gravitate towards, is that of agriculture. You're a naturalist. You believe in the soil and nature and all of that. We're in a changing environment, a constantly, aggressively changing environment, where we're seeing the need for you to be able to eat from where you live.
Yes.
And we're not seeing people, younger people, gravitating towards that.
Well, I think that's not entirely true. There are a lot of young people who are interested in agriculture. The problem is they have all of this resource and talent, but none of the infrastructure. In order to do agriculture, you need land. Most young people here can't even find an apartment for themselves, much less land to farm on. You know, farm equipment is expensive. And not only that, farming is a lot of a higher risk sector than people realize. If it rains too much, rains too little, if the weather isn't right, if the temperature isn't right, on top of that, you have climate change, the quality of the soil, all of these factors into play. Pests, exactly.
Burglars.
Exactly. You know, there's so much involved that actually it's very difficult for one person who wants to go into agriculture to do on their own. Not only that, but you have to look at the scale of produce that they will have to sell to make it profitable. Most agricultural industries, unless they're doing massive scale farming where they're doing monoculture crops, they break even if they're lucky. You know, they don't make a profit. So it's very difficult without having any support in terms of money, infrastructure, personnel, equipment, all of that stuff, for people to actually want to go into it.
You know what this says to me, listening to the way you were able to articulate and represent, because when I come at one point, you can show me from a different angle that this may not necessarily be the case. Look at it from this lens. I'm picturing that what needs to happen now is to see more younger people in senior level of management of the country, where you can see, your eye sees exactly what the future of tomorrow wants to happen. Are you thinking that you can be one of those persons to lead the way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I came back home, I was, you know, observing most of the time, and I already have my little notebook with some ideas of things that I think can help in the long run. I mean, one of the things that I told my parents to reassure them when I came home, I was like, I know that I alone cannot change the health service. I know that I have a vision. I want the public health care in the BVI to be the best that it can be for the population that's here, you know, not necessarily for medical tourism or anything like that. The people here will have good health care. They'll know that when they go to the clinics or the hospital, that they're going to get the absolute best that they can with this environment to live the life that they want to live. But it's not going to be for me. It's going to be for the generation that comes after.
Yeah.
You start that ball rolling. It's not going to be finished in the career that I have. It's going to be setting the foundation so that the people who come after me can continue the work, and maybe, hopefully before I die, but possibly afterwards with my grandchildren or great-grandchildren, they will be the ones who are reaping the benefits of the work that we're doing now.
What are the shortcomings we have right now in our healthcare delivery system?
Okay, it's very multifaceted. So the good thing is a lot of the problems that the BVI has are not unique to the BVI. That's one of the reasons why I specialize in rural and remote. So we have a centralized healthcare system where most of the healthcare specialists are in the hospital, but you have a significant portion of the population who live on the sister islands who don't have very easy access to the hospital. So I think when it comes to service delivery, the two biggest things are our emergency transfers and our staffing. Everything is on Tortola. If you don't have a nurse that can leave the clinic to go with the patient to come to Tortola, if you don't have a vessel to bring the patient to Tortola, if the weather is not allowing you to travel, all of that, it doesn't matter how many specialists you have in the hospital. If people can't access it, then what good is it to those people? So I think if we can improve our emergency transport, improve the staffing levels to allow for safe transfer of patients, then you'll have a much better service.
And that's the biggest area you see that's lacking.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've listened to you a bit on another platform where you have been very into what's happening when it comes to the constitutional review process, and it's very admirable to see young people gravitating towards this and understanding the importance of them having a voice in what is to be for their benefit come down the line.
Exactly.
Because a couple of years down the line, we'll be in our rocking chairs and looking out at the sun and holding great grandbabies and talking stories, but it's you who will have to live in that season. How do you see the young people's involvement in this, and why you thought it's so important to be at a top level of pulling them together and say, let's do this?
Well, I wouldn't call it a top level. I mean, I read the Constitution and I didn't understand a thing I was reading, and I thought, well, many hands make light work. If I don't understand, maybe somebody else will.
Don't understand.
So I just cast the net, and whoever picked up the call came and met at the college, and we read through the Constitution together and tried to figure it out. So we would literally read one section, I would lift my head and be like, I have no idea what that's supposed to be telling me. And, between the little group that we had, we would try and piece it together and be like, well, I think this is what they're trying to say. Then we look at the bigger picture. Okay, well, how does that apply in real life? Is this still applicable to how we see the Virgin Islands, the direction of it going in the future? Is this reasonable? I felt it was important because I've always had this little memory that stuck with me. So I was watching a documentary about women's rights. And this lady was saying, I didn't want to be the one that made the documentary about women's rights in film, but if I didn't do it, then who would do it? Because every woman sees the problem and goes, oh, someone else will do it, and then it doesn't get done. So ever since then, I've always had the motto, if I feel that something will help, obviously I won't do it on my own, but at least rally the troops so that we can do it together. It didn't matter age, experience, understanding, anything like that. I was like, put me in contact with someone who can get me a room, get me some copies of the Constitution. We'll do our best. If nobody shows up, fine. It'll just be me, my husband, and my mom. And at least it's 3 more people who know what they're talking about than before.
And do you think that there is still that need to pull more young people towards this? Because like you said, although they hear Dr. Amber, they would think that, okay, she could, decipher what's in this Constitution at the first read, but that's not the case.
Yes.
We never know it all, and some things are very not in our line, so we need it. So do you think that there are quite a lot more of the population that needs to have that schooling, that moment to educate themselves?
Yeah, and I think that's something that will come with time. If you have a population that's traumatized by hurricanes and also by COVID-19, people are very much in survival mode. They're like, as long as I'm good, then I don't really care what's happening around me. With a bit of time and encouragement, people will come out of that style of thinking, but we're also not really used to, as a community, being engaged at this level. So, usually there's a law passed, people will fuss about it, but there's nothing you can do about it. The same with the Constitution. People might feel, okay, well, I'll tell them my 2 cents, but at the end of the day, they'll do what they want. Exactly. Building that trust will take time. The most that, especially at the government level, the most that they can do is, prepare the table, and then who wants to come will come. Over time, more people will come. You build that trust. Hopefully you don't mess up along the way. And then in the future, we can actually have more ongoing community engagement.
Like someone said, well, we teach history in school. Why not teach our Constitution in the schools?
Exactly. But if you look at any other country, people don't read the Constitution. I mean, for the last however many 100 years in America, they've been trying to get people to read the U.S. Constitution to know what their rights are and what the government can and can't do. Even although they're very litigious and will often quote being unconstitutional, not many of them know about the Constitution. So, this problem isn't unique to the BVI. We are trying to engage a community. We can look at what other countries have tried, but at the end of the day, it will take time.
Awesome. This is a wide scope of things that we touched on, tiptoed on a little bit here today, but with the time winding down on us, I wanted to take the last 3 minutes and talk to us about the importance of taking care of the youth. The Amber Wheatley, the Kathy Richards, the everybody, how important it is to, especially in this time, pay attention to you.
It is the most important thing. If you have a list of things to do, a list of priorities, and you aren't the first thing on your list, you're pouring from an empty vessel. Not only that, you're projecting a lot of what's inside you out into the world, consciously or unconsciously. A lot of my yoga clients will say, if you didn't come to teach me yoga, I wouldn't do it. And I'm like, well, no, I'm here as a guide. But you also need to have the discipline and the trust in yourself to carve out this time for yourself. One of the tricks that I show them is when you slow down your breathing, you actually are able to slow down time, in a sense. When you're relaxed, usually that's what causes people to feel a bit anxious when they're meditating. You're sitting there breathing, relaxing, all of a sudden you enter like a mental time warp, and you think, oh my God, 20 minutes has passed, I have so much to do, when actually it's only been a minute. So if you're able to slow things down, come from that pace of calm, then you'll find that everything else in life becomes very easy. A lot of the stressful things that happen, a lot of the unpredictable things, yes, we might have our little emotions here and there, that's part of life. But overall, at the core of it, that undercurrent that is you will remain nice and calm and sturdy, which is what we want.
Awesome.
Looking after yourself, you cannot do that without looking after yourself.
Okay, and in closing, in this season where we know the talks are going to start, the politicking is going to start, the importance of young people making sure that you cast your ballot.
Absolutely. Make sure you register to vote. Make sure your voice is heard, even if you're not sure what's happening. Read the party manifestos. They're very important. They will tell you exactly what you're voting for, no matter what they say on the radio station or on the platform. If you don't read the party manifesto, you're missing out a big chunk of the story.
Awesome voice and words from a young woman in this territory who's giving back of herself, her energy, to ensure that we, move forward in a positive light. Dr. Amber Wheatley Buckell, I want to thank you so much for taking this time. We will be having future conversations on different topics going forward. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us for this edition of The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards.
We know that where you choose to bank matters, and it is your vote on what your funds do in strengthening our community. As your official Bank of Paradise, we invest and support the lifeblood of our economy by helping in the realization of personal goals for homeownership, education, and entrepreneurial visions, which support small businesses. We make it our place to connect with persons and worthy causes, and we have been doing so for more than 30 years. Where your money goes and what your dollars empower are your choice. And we thank you for choosing us, a bank that gives where it matters the most, for you, for our community, and a happier tomorrow. The National Bank of the Virgin Islands.
Everyone looks to the future, but no one truly knows what the future holds.
The number of people under the age of 20 with type 2 diabetes could increase by 49% by 2050. Let it be known that we all have a 30% chance of developing hypertension.
Globally, more than 300 million people of all ages suffer from depression.
More than 60,000 young adults aged 20 to 39 are diagnosed with cancer each year. Obesity leads to problems such as stroke, heart disease, and kidney failure.
No matter your race, age, or color, we are all at risk.
These diseases can be managed or prevented if caught early.
But with the right medicine and the right doctors to keep us on a path to live a robust and healthy life,
we will live well.
There are many ways to enjoy life, like so many ways to count on Popular.
Plug into Digicel Plus. And get even more entertainment with Disney Plus included. The best of Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and National Geographic all in one place. Whenever you want, plug into Plus to enjoy Disney Plus and much more with a home fiber bundle. Sign up today to Digicel Plus.